is 6:30 exactly, Gordy.
Good job.
We are calling this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everybody to the draft budget meeting. If you would, please stand for a moment of silence. The pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You turn to me.
I do, every time.
You ever get a response?
I need you to do it.
You haven't texted me back.
He's not gonna be here.
Oh, he's
He
not.
told me last month that
Oh.
he's at work.
Oh,
So, did he submit, I told him to send all his questions to you.
He didn't talk to him Friday and answered anything he had Friday. I had talked
Okay,
to
yeah,
him
that's, I told him to get with you early, but yeah, he's not.
Talked to him since last Friday.
Hey, you need a motion to excuse him.
do we need a motion to excuse him?
Always have to hold.
No, you're okay. Just call the roll.
Call the roll. Okay, item number 1, review of the agenda. Can't make any changes because it's a special call meeting, correct?
But we can, I mean, this is on,
What?
this was on the regular,
This is the regular.
I mean, we can make changes on this one.
Okay, what do you have any changes?
No, I don't have.
Scott?
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay. Item number 2, adoption of agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as posted.
Motion by Mr. Peridot,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
How about 4-0?
4-0, with Mr. Bobby absent. Public comments? I'm looking for 5-0 on
No.
Okay. Item number 3, review and approval of the 2020-2021 draft budget. Ms. Ellis.
Good evening, everyone. So you've had a few things in your package tonight, so hopefully you've had a chance to review those. There is a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and then there is, just go through what's in there, a list of the one-time expenditures, things that we did not originally have in the budget for this current 2020 school year that we have spent money on. The SEEK calculation, 2 different ways of calculating our tax rates. If we kept our current tax rate, and then if we took the 4% tax rate increase, and then an actual summary and detail of the budget itself printed out of Munis. So, do you want me to go through everything, or just hit a few highlights? What is the preference of the board?
So just hit a few highlights.
So the biggest things to touch on are, at this point, the only thing that we are budgeting are funds 1, 310, 320, 451. The other ones are kind of unknown at this point. We don't have enough information to put anything in. They will be budgeted as items come up, and that will all be in the tentative budget come May. And I try to give you all a synopsis on that page, slide 2 of what each fund was. So at this point, we, again, little is known at this point. We're doing our best effort with what we have. So all of our numbers in our SEEK at this point, we're basing on our second month growth factor report and our December 1 counts, how all of that fell. And it looks like based on that, and we're saying a property value increase of 1.5%. So with that being said, currently where we sit at the working budget, SEEK to what we're predicting for next year, we're looking at about a $375,000 increase in our SEEK dollars. And SEEK is always budgeted on their prior year numbers, so we're always going to be a year behind on that ADA number. We're doing it based on the prior year. And then if you'll flip over to slide 7, I just want to touch on, again, best scenario right now, just based on historical trends and averages, how we're estimating the beginning balance, you can see for the past fiscal years what we actually ended percentage-wise spending and collecting. And so as of December 2019, we're at a 32% spend and a 55% collection rate. And so I just did a historical average of those, and then worst case scenario, if we spent our highest percentage and collected our least revenue percentage, what that looks like, and we kind of just budgeted in between at the $10 million for our beginning balance. Again, that is very much subject to change based on continued spending of the board and how we end this fiscal year. And that will be kind of more reflective at the May budget. We'll have, a few more months under our belt closer to the end of the year that we'll be able to nail that number down a little bit better. Ask questions at any point if you have questions. I'm just going to keep rolling unless you ask me something.
Well, I guess before we leave that slide then, I appreciate all the hard work this budget takes to put together. I know it's especially coming in the W-2 seasons and everything else, it's a hard time to do it. So I want to start off with saying thanks for doing all that. I really only have a couple questions, but on slide 7, so in round numbers, we're projecting to end this year, based on the current budget, about $6 million in the contingency.
If every single penny is spent that is budgeted and only we collect the revenue that is budgeted, but historically that has never been what Clark County has done. So, I mean, in round numbers, if that is the case scenario, yes, 6 million would be about that number.
And so based upon the methodology on that slide 7, you started this next year's budget out just using $10 million as a starting point. That's a pretty big jump, $4 million. I went after it a different way and did some adjustments, and I'm not saying that your method, mathematically your method's not flawed, but I think taking up to $10 million might give us a false sense of security that we're going to have more in the contingency fund than we really are. I'm guessing maybe it might be in the $7 or $8 million range or something like that.
And
But
we can renegotiate that in May when we get to the tentative budget. This is a very first look, and that is historically how, since I have been here, and even with Dr. Bob, how we calculated beginning balance, and so far it has all been pretty close. We estimated 10 million this time last year, and our beginning balance is right at 10. So it has worked in past historical looking at those numbers, so that's why I've continued it that way, but it is very much open to negotiation to change that methodology if the board wishes.
I thought we estimated 12 and it came in 10, or it
At
was
the
a
draft
$2
budget
million.
level, we estimated 10. And then it was changed at the tentative level due to some discussion. We upped it to 12 because we thought we were going to come in at that, but we really came in at 10.
And that's a little same, I mean, right now, if we went on our average of the 82,106, we would have 13,800,000. That's the kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Over to slide 9. This is kind of a synopsis of our salaries and benefits. Obviously, every year we have to give that step raise in our rank for the year of service. Our classified CPR's retirement is going up again 12%. So currently this year we're at 24.06%, and it's going up to 26.95% next year. Good news is with the legislation last year in March, they passed that local boards who directly employ retired security resource officers are eligible to we're exempt from having to pay insurance and retirement. And so we applied for that, we were deemed exempt, and so that's about $100,000 savings on our budget that we have been paying in retirement and insurance on our SROs that we have hired who are retired and reemployed. Prior legislation, it was only if you had some kind of contract with the local or state governments, but then they changed that, that directly employed with local boards. So that was a good savings for us. So that's been taken into account in this budget. So that's also going to help this year's budget that we're in end with expenses that were budgeted that we will not be spending, because I budgeted for insurance, for retirement on these SRO officers in our current budget, but we're now exempt from that. So that's money that's going to come back to us in the budget that will roll over into beginning balance.
Was there some reimbursement fee?
Yes, and they actually are going to go back and reimburse us what we have paid into retirement back to that March 2019 date that we qualified for that, and legislation made that eligible for us. So we're going to get a little bit of money back we paid in retirement, and again, it's an expense that's budgeted that we're not going to spend. So there's multiple expenses through the budget, which is part of why beginning balance in round numbers, we don't necessarily only end with our contingency balance, is because we budgeted stuff and for whatever reason, sometimes it doesn't get spent. So it rolls into next year into the beginning balance. And that's why you see historically the trend of, 80% spend versus 100% spend, because we don't typically spend 100% of what we budgeted. Also, in the FY21 budget, we have added some positions and then we've taken some away, but the ones we've taken away, I want to be very clear, they are not currently in the budget. They are growth positions that we've added due to our numbers, and we always, every year, pull those people back just because we want to look at our numbers again and ensure that we really do need that person, because if you don't pull them back and you go ahead and re-employ them and our numbers go down, then you have a person you have to employ. There's certain deadlines of when you can pull that position back, and so we, just good practice, if it was a growth position that year, we pull it back. So on general ed, we've had 10 teachers, 3 IAs. Special ed, we've had 2 teachers and 7 IAs. So those all will be pulled back, looked at the numbers. And again, this is currently based on our staffing allocation for FY20, because we do not have the allocation yet for FY21. We will be getting that and having a meeting February 10th with Ms. Moore, who's preparing that for us. We'll be meeting with her, Mr. Christie, myself, Scarlett, and Greg to go over those numbers and see if we agree with them, and then that will be presented to you at the February board meeting, the staffing allocation, the tentative.
So much of that could be put back in.
So some of those might be put back in based on our ADA numbers, based on that staffing
Hopefully the
allocation
numbers
that
will
might
stay up.
change.
You still-
So I mean,
Growth
growth is good.
Right.
I mean, that's a good problem to have, but it does make you increase your staff.
That's why you saw the seat money go up, because
Yeah.
there was an increase.
Right. And
But we
again, we'll see that return in our revenue next year for the numbers this year.
But we got the 1-year offset, so
Yes.
we pick up 132 students, that SEEK benefit shows up in this next year's budget.
In the 21 budget of what we picked up this year.
So that revenue goes up,
Yes.
but we're not forecasting at this point in time to have a similar amount of ADA next year.
We haven't projected that. We've not looked
We're
at
not
that
looking at
yet.
it.
Well, by not having this
Number.
674,000 growth teachers, we're essentially assuming that our ADA is going to go back down for 2021.
But these where they were growth teachers, we want to make sure that those folks are notified by the appropriate time at the end of the year that they are not returning. Now, as soon as we see that the numbers are there, then we'll start talking with those people before this year's out if we need to. But it's purely based on the.
Well, I was just talking about from a budget standpoint now. I suppose since they are sitting there right now, they're not in fiscal 2020 budget, that's actually going to be a negative offset we'll probably see in 2020. Will make the contingency will go down because of that.
Depends on spending in the other categories as well.
Well, that one item will force it down, and then, like we've got 100,000 going up the other direction. I'm sure we'll have things that get flopped over in the next year as we typically do. Okay.
Based on needs that we've seen in our district, just highlight the positions that we have put into the budget. Currently, and this is kind of a wash on the budget because currently we are contracting with a physical therapist, and so it's kind of just moving money from one category to the payroll category, and we're going to employ a physical therapist. And the thought pattern behind that when we sat down with special ed was, right now, contracting, we don't necessarily control 100% of her time, and she serves other districts. And this is also a position that helps Medicaid bills. So if we employed her, The cost is really very similar. There's not an increase in cost to us per se, but it's a benefit to that person that she would get insurance, but it's also a benefit to us that we would have her 100% of the time, and we would get more Medicaid billing out of her strictly for our district. So it could help the Medicaid revenue go up as well.
We can't bill Medicaid if we're contracting with somebody, but if they're our employee, we can bill Medicaid.
So it's pretty close,
Salary
even though
part-
with her.
The salary's pretty much a wash with what
Yeah.
we're having to pay
So
for
the amount we're
services,
contract paying is really on our budget, the same as
what we pay.
what we're
salary.
gonna pay her in salary.
Yeah.
It's not, it's
Or
kind of
maybe
a
a
wash
little
in
more.
our budget, it's just moving categories. So it's gonna be in the O100 employee section, salaries and benefits, O100, O200 versus contracted services, which are in the O300 series service. So it's just moving it around on the budget, but that is a new position to the district. Also a migrant recruiter and migrant interpreter, and that's kind of been like a growth position this year. Our grant that used to pay for this has gone down from the federal government. But obviously the need for our migrant recruiter and interpreter has not gone down. We've actually seen an influx with our crop here in Winchester of hemp being increased. That's brought in migrant workers, so we've got more migrant students. So it's not positions that we can really cut. So we discussed that and said, you know, that needs to go from a growth and it really needs to become a permanent position on our general fund because we do have to keep those people. It's not something, we don't want to lose those people. 3 ESL teachers, again, influx of families. We have seen that need to increase, and those are very hard positions to obtain, and so that's not someone you want to treat like a growth. We did this past year, but we needed them back very quickly. So we just said we're going to go ahead and budget them because we want to make sure we ensure we keep them and don't lose them. And then the full-time custodian is also kind of a wash on the budget. We have, talking with Mr. Nichols, he wants to try a new way of staffing his night staff instead of having as many subs at the night shift level, which is very hard to obtain, you know, being on call at night, to create a full-time night floater instead to help with that situation. And basically we moved some money from the sub budget to this position. So we just kind of, again, reallocating funds. So that's kind of a wash on the budget as well because it's already in this year's budget as sub money. But now it's going to be an actual employee full-time. And he thinks that will work better than having to have subs on call. And then the 2 athletic complex custodians, that's, you know, we've mentioned that several times before we've gotten to this point, adding all the new facilities and the grounds and everything that needs to be upkept. That's 2 positions that have been added. One's already been brought on because of the need of the football field and the stadium and all that being done in the gym, getting ready to be done. We've already brought one on, kind of as a growth this year. But it will be permanent in the budget next year for 2 positions for the athletic complex.
And if I could
Yep.
make sure I understood what you just told us then, is even though I have 2 on there, we already have 1, so it's really just kind of 1 being added versus where we sit right now in terms of staff.
But the one that we added this year is not in our budget for this year.
Okay.
So it's being added, 2 positions are being added to the budget for FY21, whereas we brought this one on right before
Right,
Christmas.
just,
I
yeah.
think.
yeah.
So he's only working half a year, so it's not a full year's salary on this year's budget, but we saw the need to go ahead and get that position in here, which you all had approved that job description and all of that a few months back, so. So that's the staffing side. Questions?
I know it's just in the beginning stages of the governor talking about the raises that he's wanting to do. Are we budgeting for that at all?
That is
So-
not in this draft budget. no.
Okay,
I
so that
don't
could
see
be,
it I don't see it happening.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to happen based on everybody that we're talking to, but for the very reason that, you know, when they talk about doing a $2,000, there are several things that there's problems with. It's $2,000 per teacher. That's not across the board, it's just for teachers. So you're getting a one-sided kind of thing there. Secondly, they do the one that they mandated for 1 year. We're not going to be able to go take it back next year, so that's
Yeah.
for us forever. And that 2,000 next year becomes 2,200 or 2,400, and each year that increases to where, so Superintendent's Association and some of the others are really lobbying, and it's $97 million, is is what it's gonna cost for the statewide.
I think so.
They don't have it in the budget. I don't know where to find it.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't expect that to go anywhere.
So that's why we didn't put it in there, is we don't
Gotcha.
truly foresee that it will come to fruition. But if it does,
We'll
we
find
should
it.
know that by May, and it will be in the May budget. The next two slides, I was asked to specifically point out any major ads or big ticket items that were included into the budget, and kind of just the past several meetings, just hearing you all is you want everything that you see as a need put into the budget as much as possible instead of being brought to you in a separate. So that's what we've done. So we've put all of that in here, minus, there's still some things that are not, but we try to put the stuff we saw for next year for sure that we thought needed to occur in here. So attendance has asked for this digital data storage for student records called Yellow Folder, and I believe Ms. Jen has more information on that if you would like to hear that right now, or we can. Greg has it.
I mean, either way.
Yeah.
We got, what it is it's listed under attendance, and Jen, jump in at any point in time, but it's a student data records thing. A couple of years ago, legislation changed where we have to keep all of our student records from here to eternity. So logistically, we're out of space, basically, as we stand right now. So if we continue to do the paper copies of stuff and keep these folders and so forth, we're in trouble space-wise to be able to accurately get to these things if needed. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years is talking about a way that we can do this electronically. And we've been scoping out some companies, and Yellow Folder was the one that just jumped out to us. We just kind of fell in love with the company and what they have to offer. We're going to, regardless of anything moving forward, they've asked us, will you pilot this for us? With merging with IC, they merged with IC, which is so beneficial with being able to move our records and so forth. They're the only company that does that. And so we're going to pilot with that.
Infinite Campus is IC?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I just want to make
We're as
sure.
bad as the military. We use these acronyms all the time. But with Infinite Campus, that is a huge selling point for us because it takes down on the legwork of actually having to put so much of this input into the system. But what we're excited about is starting in March, they've asked us to pilot this. And we're going to pilot it to the end of the school year through the summer. There is no strings attached. There are no strings attached for us to actually purchase their particular product with it moving forward, and we do not have to pay them for using it for the pilot. So we get an opportunity here to see, do we like the product? We're sold on it from the logistical side and what we have heard. And Jen, jump in.
So basically, as Greg was saying, we have to keep all these records for life. And right now we have records here at Central Office, and then we have records at GRC. GRC has 30 filing cabinets in their records room. They are completely full, and they have boxes on top of their filing cabinets with student records. We have a back room of 16 cabinets that are completely stuffed. Every time we get a new folder in, we go through and we take out what is not pertinent information to try to condense them. But we're required to keep so much of the documentation for so long that it's hard to do because each of them have a different timeline. Like gifted and talented documents have to be kept for 5 years and so forth. But we're just running out of space as this comes on. So with the merge of Yellow Folder and Infinite Campus, anytime a new student enrolls, their folder will be created automatically, and it's based on their student number. So when we get a document that we need to put into their folder, we'll scan it in, and with their student number, with the software that is component with Yellow Folder, it looks at the student number, it'll match the student number, and then put it in the proper folder. So the proper folder within the cumulative folder online will have their legal documents, their academic records. It has a health folder, so it'll know which document to put it where. Something that we have to do at the end of every school year is we print off the final report card. That's at the high school, 1,600 sheets of paper that you print out and you put in a folder because we have to keep that record. So with this program, they have a software that will pull it up, because Infinity Campus pulls everything up to a PDF. And when we go to save it, we'll drop it into their Yellow Folders software. It will take and export each student's final report card into their Cube folder for us. That will save us countless hours, as well as cost on paper, ink, and so forth. Same thing with the transcripts. At the end of the year, we have to put a new transcript in the Cube folder. We pull it up, we print it off, we put it in a folder. That's time. So now, we'll pull up the transcript to the PDF document. We'll be able to dump this document into Yellow Folders processing, and based on the student number, it will file it for us automatically. So it's an expense, but yet we'll also have some savings. Folders, we have 6 different color folders in our students' Cube folder based upon the information. So we have to purchase that every year. And of course, I mean, we look at getting about 400 kindergarten students a year, but then of course we add on kids. Folders unfortunately get misplaced, so we're all the time working with these folders. So we'll save on that expense, we'll save on paper and so forth, but it'll be ease. I know, that sometimes that's not always the best selling point, but in the summer, we need a transcript from a high school student. We don't have those here, so we have to go. I have to make arrangements to get into the records room. A lot of our students' transcripts are still on microfiche, so we have to pull up the microfiche thing. And of course, you know me, I'm like, I get in there and I'm scared to death because some of those reels are from 1940. So if you break that, you're really, you're up a creek. And so with this, we're looking at using the company to take our microfiche and actually making those digital index cards so that we can do away with that machine, because once that machine dies, it dies. Nobody really fixes that anymore. So ease on that will be a great benefit to us.
Yeah, the initial expense for this first year is going to be about $23,500 roughly. If you include the preschool into the numbers in terms of working with them as well. The good thing about it is that cost instantly goes down $6,000, because $3,000 is going to be for roughly the microfiche and $3,000 is going to be for the online setup. We'll have that taken care of after the first year. So then you drop that off, that's about a $17,000 expense then that we would have basically every year from that point on with it. But the savings, we worked with our guy in Texas where the company is, and we talked to him about our numbers, what we utilize. And we came up, it was about a $15,500 savings when you talk about toner, paper, all these things, labor, all of this type of stuff where people are uploading and people are working with folders. So in a sense, we kind of calculated that you're really only talking about a yearly expense of about $2,000 to $2,500 when you factor in the savings versus what the cost will be. And we've got a plan over the next 2 to 3 years to basically roll this out to get all of the student data basically online in the cloud, if you will. So there should not be a plan. The plan is to not have a labor expense attached to this if we roll it out systematically.
Can I make a suggestion here? We talk a lot about getting hit with things with contingency as we go. But these items right here look like they could be a great work session type. We got $1 million. Last week we were complaining about $270,000 short notice. Now we're talking about 1.1 million with no background. And I'm sure that probably all these things, there's probably a need for those type of things. But I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we had a work session and went over all these things in the work session. We had more information instead of just putting them in here. I know this is just a review budget, but I'd rather have the opportunity to review them and then approve and put them in the May budget. I feel more comfortable about seeing those things at that time.
That could be an agenda for the first work session.
Yeah.
And we could put it on the first one, I guess, as long as we just
Or-
have it done
or
by
one
May or
before
whatever,
May.
it just depends on what we have there. But I think there's a lot of items on here that probably need a lot of explanation. I mean, you're looking at buying furniture for schools, okay? Are there other schools that need furniture? We're gonna hit with that somewhere else. I don't know all the things that come in there, and I just think if we had some kind of background and we're able to discuss each one of these things in a work session, may help us make a better decision. Now, obviously, one thing we're talking about tonight, I guess there's 290-some thousand that we'll be discussing tonight that could be added back in. But problems with that, or?
Well, if I could ask a question to follow up with that, tonight's, the charge we have by the state laws, we just review this budget. We're not,
This
even
is
though
not
the line
approval.
item
That's
says
approving.
consider approval, we actually,
It's really review.
we don't have the charge to approve it tonight. So
Anything in here can be
I would
changed.
think,
This
we're not
is-
going to have a vote to approve it, we're just sort of acknowledging that we reviewed it.
Does say approval.
Well,
It was presented to me to
You're
put
correct. Over here it
everything in
says
the
here.
budget that was asked, so that's what I have done. So
But-
I put
What I was
everything in
getting ready
here
to
so
say.
you all can see what it
Well, I
looks
think it's
like.
good. I don't have
Nothing
any
here
problem
is-
with that. No, I just say that I think there's a
Absolutely
lot of items in here like that, and I'm glad you're in here because they've not been in there in the past. We've not put those in. And I'm glad you're in here because those are the things that came back and surprised us during board meetings. I just think that most of them, I would just like to have a little bit more background on all of them and something to
And that was
follow up with.
the intention. This was,
Right.
here's a first look at everything that was asked when we sat down and had the meetings for draft. And then obviously, they were prepared to tell you what yellow folder was. I don't know that everyone is prepared to tell you everything on
Well,
this
yeah,
list.
well, I
and
know,
that
but
could
I
be a
mean,
long
even
night,
at
but
that,
this
we
work
didn't get any
session would be-
background on yellow folder. We
Yeah.
didn't see anything
Right.
to look at that or whatever there, but I just think that it would be better if we had an opportunity to review these. And as far as whether we approve or not, I think for myself, if I'm Mr. Holland, I'd rather it not be on there and we work for it than to put it on there and then to say, oh, no, you're not going to get it. I mean, I just would rather it be that way. And again, these are probably things, just like we've had in the past, just about everything that we've had that we've complained about when we got, we still approved it because we needed it. But we're at the same thing that we probably need more explanation, at least that's from my point of view. And I'll have to apologize, I didn't get an opportunity to come in and speak to Alicia or Mr. Christie about the budget, so I'm a little blinded by most of these.
I agree with what you're saying on doing them, but we have gave this poor girl so many different directions to go to. She hears from one board member that tells her she needs to put this in there because they want to see it, they want to know what we're doing.
That's exactly what I told her I wanted it in there.
Yeah,
But,
and then-
at the same time, I think,
But there
You
is
just can't-
time, there's time to discuss
there's
each
plenty, I mean,
one.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, this, as Mr. Hodges said, this is more of a review and approval, or just a review, but I think that if I was
Normally we
sitting
approve.
out there, I wouldn't want something put on there, and then we came back in May and we took it off.
Well, it was very much prefaced in every single meeting that we met with people, we will put it in, but it is not necessarily going to stay there. I mean, that was very much said to every single person.
That's good,
Yeah.
at least they know they have to come and
Yes.
fight for it.
Yeah.
So it was said, we will put it in there and have a discussion, but it's not necessary that it will be deemed has to happen next year by the board, because that is ultimately your all's decision. And there are needs coming at you from many different directions.
So at this point, what you're thinking on,
That's-
because you see a list of 1.1 million, are you saying at this point, take that, just leave that part out when you?
Well, we got
approve it?
294,000 we're getting ready
Yeah,
to.
we'll
And
talk
it's
about it
included in
next
that
agenda,
1.1.
but you're getting ready to do with that one what you're talking about doing with the rest of these, you're getting
Yeah,
ready to discuss
and
it.
so we've been able to look at this one, and that's why we asked questions about it and had it come back this week.
We
That's
can,
what I say with the other things, I mean, because the only thing that jumps, I mean, I'm looking at Baker, $120,000 worth of new student, new desk and what. So what did we do for the others, and what are they looking at? Or, because I don't want to do 120,000 for Baker, and then
Full
in
school.
June, we get back and we want another 100-some thousand for somebody else. So let's just make sure that we have it all at that time.
I think it's good that it's in there because we're aware. But
Right,
then I
yeah.
think it would be good for the work session so that we can dive in and make sure that we're
absolutely.
getting
necessary.
everybody what they
I think that would be
need.
a
Yeah.
great idea.
so, I think perhaps a way to get past this is, I'll see if I can pull it up, but I believe the state law just requires us to have reviewed it. I don't think we have to
Just
approve
review
it.
it.
And if the motion said approve it, and we've got things in here that maybe might be premature, perhaps that would be a more expansive motion that is absolutely necessary for this evening. I think once we get to the end of this presentation, we can just acknowledge that we've reviewed the budget without having to actually put the word approve in there. Because that way we won't get bogged down in, should those things be in there, or should we, complain that the contingency starting point of 10 million is too wrong? We won't get bogged down in that right now, especially if we just have 4 people here. So that would be my friendly suggestion as we go along, as we just, when we're done, it's just acknowledging that we've reviewed it.
Okay. So as you can see, these next 2 slides, total together is the 1.1 that Mr. Peridot referred to. So we've got technology, banker, custodial, transportation, and maintenance that have asked for specific things when we sat down in those meetings. So not to get bogged down in those, we'll add them on a work session. Any questions on that? If not, we'll move forward. So the rest of the slides are just kind of a synopsis of what the budget summary is by object codes, those different categories, what our debt on general fund is and what that's made up of. So the slide, and this is a concept that sometimes gets confusing, is what our reoccurring dollars are versus what our total budget is. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick on page, slide 14. We're talking about summary of expenditures there. And there should have been a summary of revenues as well that I skipped through. But essentially, the way that looks is you look at what you bring in for the year is what we're calling recurring. So recurring revenues are things we know we're going to bring in every year. We're taking that beginning balance out. And recurring expenses are things we know every single year we're going to spend out without that contingency line item. And sometimes we get those one-time expenditures put up into that reoccurring category, like, for example, the one-time purchase of the security cameras you're gonna do tonight. That's gonna get moved up into the budget and look like reoccurring expenses, but it will get pulled out next year because you're only gonna do that one time. So the fluctuation of how the budget and the coding that is mandated to us from KDE sometimes gets a little bit confusing. Slide 16 is where I would like you to look for, and this is that reoccurring monies. If we took our beginning balance away and our contingency away, where we look and what we look like. And so you saw, 1.1 we had up there on those 2 slides that are essentially kind of one-time expenses, honestly. There's a few in there that would be reoccurring, but most of those were one-time things, and we're 1.3 on the reoccurring. So that's very close. That's not going to be a reoccurring expenditure every year of 1.1 million in our budget. Just kind of want to point that out to you.
So before we leave that, to make sure I don't get confused over this, taking out the one-time items, you've got budget at this point in time that the contingency, whatever it is, which starts with 10 or 8 or whatever, it'll go down approximately, 1.3 or 1.4 million.
But if you didn't have that 1.1 in the budget, so if I didn't show that to you tonight as a budgeted item already, this number would not be a negative 1.3. It would be more like maybe 300,000.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
So I've already put that 1.1 in the budget, so it looks like it's a reoccurring expense the way I've had to budget it, because it's not in contingency, it's up in the budgeted items. But when you saw that list of stuff, you could see, some of those were really one-time type items. And there's other things, that are like that as well. So that's what I'm trying to, 1.1 to the 1.3. We're not truly 1.3 in the whole per se, is what this looks like. It's just the way it falls out on our coding that KDE makes us code. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to you. I did skip the slide right before that. I'd go back up to 15. Contingency, again, this is preliminary, but where we stand right now, we did say a 10 million beginning, and our contingency would be 8.6 if we took the 4% tax increase. And so that's, and even if we kept our same rate, we're still right at 13% with our contingency again, negotiables. We can have a work session of how to calculate beginning balance and any other items that we can put in the budget.
That sounds like a fun work session. That's kidding, sure.
Any other questions before we leave general fund? We're gonna move on to Fund 51. Good. So Fund 51 is our food service, and they are pretty much budgeted very similar to how they are this current year. They have had, you know, a lot of program changes with the CEP program and how they're funded, and they've started the breakfast program, and that's made her add some staff, which you're gonna see her staff expenses increase due to that, and it's a numbers calculation that she has. But essentially, summary overall, her budget is going down about $182,000 in the scheme of things. But if you flip over to 21, is her summary of expenditures. And you'll see salaries and benefits are up. And that's a little bit more than just what a step raise would be on current staff. But like I said, with the breakfast, that's made her have to increase some of her staffing in the schools because she has a specific formula of how many meals served, how many staff she has to have. And then kind of you can see the rest there of how it's budgeted out. Questions on Fund 51? All right. 310 and 320 are our capital funds, our capital outlay and our building funds. Capital outlay is based on our ADA number that the seat calculation has, and it tells you specifically you have to give $100 for that seat number that they put, that ADA number that puts in the seat calculation. So we're estimating right now, and this is the second month growth factor report number, and so this is subject to change, but this is where we sit right now. We're looking at about $478,874 in capital outlay, and this is a split of some of it gets committed to debt service, and then the other is that capital funds request we always bring you once a year. This is the excess capital fund to use in a manner that is either brought to you on a capital funds request, or if we have a construction project that we're going to start, you can commit these funds to that in the BG. Fund 320, the building fund, this is based on assessments, and we do have a second nickel here at Clark County, so we have 2 nickels, and the way that falls out on the equivalent right now is about 11 cents of our local property tax dollars that we have to put into construction. And with this, 100% gets committed to our debt service for our bonds right now. So that's pretty straightforward. 400 is the debt service, and that is based on our bonds, and I've got listed out those bonds. They have debt service schedules that we follow. So that dictates every year what it is going to be. And those who are part of the facilities committee will get a lesson on that on Thursday night with our bonding agent. We'll be talking about where we stand bonding capacity and how all that works, and selling bonds for new construction projects. Any questions? That is it. That's all I've got for you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So we just need to
Yes, yeah.
acknowledge.
Acknowledge the review of the 2021 draft budget.
So we're saying we need a motion?
We need something in the record saying the board has reviewed the draft budget.
I seen that on there. That's what I had pulled up to.
I'll move to acknowledge a review of the 2021 draft budget.
Motion by Mr. Fairdown,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item number 4, discussion and consider approval of upgraded bus camera system for bus fleet in the amount of $270,000. I guess before we start that, I do have something I want to add. We have a department needs that we trust with our departments, the people that are in our departments. When we change vendors and technology or replace items, these individuals examine our options and make recommendations about what is best. I feel like we do not need to go behind and second guess them. I've had a few people come to me with some concerns that they feel like they're being second guessed on a lot of things when they come in front of this board. And I don't want anybody to come here and stand. I mean, we pay these people to go out and do their job, and I want them to feel like that we're listening to them. And that's all I have from my else. Paul, it's on you.
We'll entertain any questions you have. Probably need to let Mr. Nichols come up too. Went back, talked with this company. You can see they're listed now. You'll see the current counties that are currently using REI. Carroll County is the next coming online, and Campbell County is beyond the Carroll County one. I'll let Mr. Nichols, we talked to him about the possibility of doing 10 at a time, 10 now and doing the remainder. Then there's also, they've gone back and recalculated, and because we would be coming in behind Campbell County, they wouldn't even be able to start installation here until July, which would put us in our new budget, and they've come down on the price on that. And then I think David has some more information on, we researched the cost that they gave us on the cellular data service to track the buses and to track this information, and we can go through our AT&T service and save somewhere.
Well, since I've talked to you, Paul, we have learned that the cellular service is only through Sprint. And if we go through AT&T, we have to change the hardware. So it's actually, doesn't save us any money, doesn't
Okay,
gain us
never
any
mind.
money.
Scratch that.
So
Scratch
I
that.
do apologize, but that was the phone call we got back from AT&T just a little while ago. Yeah, the board asked three to four questions, and for me last time is what other districts have it. I called every single one that I was able to call and get an answer on. There were only one negative comment. The negative comment that I got from Greenup County was the Wi-Fi system was not good. If we were going to do it, to definitely go with the cellular system, because they went with the Wi-Fi because it was cheaper. And the buses were supposed to, when they drove by the school, they were supposed to bounce off the Wi-Fi and download the data, but it did not do that unless the bus sat there in a close proximity for long periods of time. So that was the only negative comment that I got. On the second round, the second question was, can we do some now and some later? Obviously, the answer to that question is yes, but it does cost us money. If we do that, the difference in extra cost, if we did that, was about $12,420. That's because we have to bring people back at different times to install, and plus you don't get a discount for the first 10 cameras. You only get the discount for the second 50 cameras because they do it by numbers. According to what Mr. Josh, what's his last name?
Josh Aringer.
And the third question was, how's this information stored? You can see it's stored in two places. There's a hard drive on the bus. There's also an SD card, so there's a backup system on the bus, but also we can set it up with the cellular system. Once the bus comes back into the parking lot, we can download that data onto a Google Drive to make it available for the principals and bus driver review as needed. So the fourth question that was asked of me was, what about some disciplinary data? The data shows that out of, for this school year only, fall 2019, that most of our bus referrals came from Baker. The second biggest number of referrals came from Campbell, and I think it's more of a, I thought this all along, it's more of an age group thing than a bus route thing. These kids tend to around this age, start to get a little rambunctious. So I broke down the Baker information for you. So out of all the buses that go to Baker, keep in mind that's the only Baker we have. So every bus tends to have a Baker kid on it. So all of our buses are involved in that age group. But out of those buses, I took the top 10, which thank the assistant principal at Baker for helping me compile this information, but there was 38 referrals on bus 35, 22 on bus 34, 20 referrals on bus 9, and you can see the rest of that. And the last part of that was what other transportation needs do we have, and I listed a bunch. I'm not saying all those are number one priorities, but didn't want to leave anything out because the board kind of felt like we left this out. And it had been on prior updates, but maybe didn't seem put out in this. Any questions?
I guess the biggest question I have is, at our last meeting, it said this came off of the state bid list. I guess I'm still, 3 years later, still don't have a good understanding of how the state bid list works. I mean, can you all go out to a database that's out there and price each one of these items and see what the cost is, and it'll tell you there's a volume difference between 10 cameras and 60 cameras? I mean, is there hard data on the state bid list, or is this really more like they're an approved vendor for the state?
The company that we now refer to, our finance director, is probably more versed in how all this works than I am as far as the technical part of it. But this particular vendor uses Central States to put their bid out there, so Central State actually has the state bid. They're an approved vendor. So REI, Angel Tracks, all these ones that we demoed this past year, we were thinking at some point these cameras are going to give out. So let's get a couple of different ones in here, 2 or 3. Let's put them on our buses, let's try them out. And we did that. And we come back with REI was the best option for us based on the big data retrieval, storage, whole 9 yards. It was probably the cheaper of the 3. Actually, if you look at Angel Tracks, and I have that data, we'd have to give it to you, but it's actually more expensive to go with Angel Tracks for the current system, the Gatekeeper. Everybody hates Gatekeeper.
I probably didn't phrase it correctly. I was really wondering where the pricing came from. Does the pricing come from a state bid list, or does the vendor give us pricing on a
They
dynamic
have
basis?
approved a list of vendors. They've gone out and they've gathered bids, and these are the state bid list vendors that they have what they perceive to be the best deal, the best bidders. So they pre-bid it for you. And of the things that they've pre-bid, those vendors stay with them, and they have pre-bid with all the vendors, and then they give you which ones are the best in their opinion, as far as best prices. So it's not, they've bid it at one time, but they're a vendor list. It's a list of people that are vendors, that are state approved.
So
At some point, the state have determined they've got the best prices.
it makes me wander around. If we're going to do the whole shimoli, whether we would be money ahead to bid this out.
That's kind of what we did in bringing the top 3 suppliers in.
But, now that y'all narrowed down to REI, and it seemed like, I appreciate the work y'all did. It seemed like a really good system. Now that y'all narrowed it down to REI, should we put out a request for proposals just for this same REI equipment that Central States could respond, and maybe, I don't know, Bluegrass International Trucks in Georgetown could respond, or anybody else in the state could respond to
I
that?
spoke with Taylor at REI today about that very question, and she said, I don't see why you would go anywhere else. We make sure that Central States has our very best price. You're not going to find that price anywhere else, is what I was told by Taylor at REI, and I can't think of Taylor's last name. Well, they are their state vendor, and
I'd like to just interject real quick, and it sounds like a wonderful thing to do, but in my world of technology, when you ask for those prices and you can get a cheaper price, what you're not realizing is you're working with sub-vendors that don't allow tax, they'll charge you taxes, they don't take POs. So then what happens is it looks like it's going to be a cheaper price, but it's not compatible with the way we purchase things.
not only that, but it's a local company with Josh and the people there at Central States have been good about coming to us in a moment's notice, and I feel comfortable that Central States would back up their product through REI.
And if I can interject, the state has done the bidding process for you. They have put out an RFP or whatever you want to call it and said, we want companies across the state and other states to bid this product. And that is who came back and had the best product, and that's why they're the approved vendor on the state vendor list. It's because they've already done that process. So you're kind of just redoing the process.
Okay.
It's already been done for you.
And again, we want to take all the guesswork out of it. That's the reason we pulled 3 different types of camera systems in. We tried them, we still have angle tracks actually on one of our buses, and we need to decide to send it back or just purchase it for that one bus.
Well, since it's a big amount of money, I just want to make sure that these
I understand.
assumptions we're dealing with are correct. So I don't want somebody to say, well, why don't y'all ever bid anything out? And the answer is, once we've decided on the equipment, the mechanism, the state bid list, we feel
And there are
confident
things
it's
in
given
the
us.
state bid list, we don't feel that there's an adequate number of suppliers from the state bid list, and therefore we do bid some things out. That's why we bid some things out.
We feel comfortable going down this route to get the best price for our,
I do. I don't know how you're gonna, I mean, could somebody somewhere know somebody and get somebody, maybe, I don't know, but that'd be the only way, because the state has bid this, and all these companies that carry REI have submitted bids on what they would charge, and that's why it's,
okay, I just wanted to verify our
State
assumption
Department
since
says
it's a
this is
big number.
One of the big advantages of going with companies on bid list also is their rate for service. They'll bid a certain rate for service for install and for warranty work. So they may say we won't charge you more than $80 an hour because we're on this list, whereas other companies could charge you $150 to $200 an hour. We commit that bid to service and warranty work as well.
And since you mentioned warranty, I did leave that out last time, and I do apologize for that, but I had to get this together in a hurry after our meeting, and I did leave that out, and I apologize. We did it with a 3-year warranty, and I did pass that along to you in an email, I think it was that night before we left. So
I can't remember where we left off. Is there an annual access fee in year 2 and 3 to be able to utilize the software to pull this up on phones or devices or anything like that?
I think that's all covered in the $17,000 fee that's been quoted on here year to year.
Okay, so essentially to run this for the next 3 years, it's this cost plus the
I
cellular.
have not seen an upgrade fee or anything like that, anything I've looked at, but I'll be happy to show comment as well.
this first price includes the 17,000.
267.
267, 760 is the current price after we went back.
And actually, the other two includes that too, it's just multiplied by the number of. So there is no advantage of going to 10 cameras now, 10 cameras later. The savings comes in doing it all at one time, I believe.
So we're looking at putting this in the budget for,
You have in the budget that you just reviewed, in there's 270, was it
260.
270 is what I'm.
the 270, and the actual cost here, it looks like it's 267, 760.
Can I remind the board of one thing? We're looking at legislation coming through, it's 136, that's going to require
House bill.
all school districts to have stop arm cameras. That's one of the reasons we started looking at this. Our system is so old. You know, and there's nothing worse than thinking you've got footage or something and you go pull the SD card and it's not there. That affects me, it affects the principals at the schools, and, you know, these cameras have been great. I think the new cameras will be better, there'll be more of them, there'll be better angles, there'll be more video and audio. We'll be able to pass this information along to principals who will do a better job with better information, making a more accurate call on the discipline for certain situations.
Yeah, Alicia, in your budget, you had $270,000 for both security cameras and $24,000 for cellular service for the, so are we doing both of those with this, or?
Actually, the cellular service was included in that 267,000.
Okay.
Yes. So we could actually take that
So we already cut $24,000 off the budget.
Saving
Unless you
already.
Corey's making us money.
Be reflected in our pay. Yeah, we
That's right, that's
Yeah.
right.
I knew it was in that, I just didn't say anything, that's why I said it was 267, 760, that included the cellular stuff.
Can I say one more thing? I know that every department that comes in here, everybody gets up here and present, they have a number one priority. They want to be good stewards of their department, just like me and Danny do, you know, and we want to make our department as good as it could possibly be. And I'm not saying that we don't appreciate what you guys have already done. I mean, the 4 new buses, the extra pavement parking lots. And I know you guys have your list of priorities, and it seems to be endless. So, I mean, again, I just wanted to throw that out there, that I don't want to step ahead of anybody else. I think it's about kids, and at the end of the day, we're just doing our best to try to do what's best for kids. So I do appreciate what you've done, and what you've done. Just wanted to say that.
That's good.
You good down there?
I'm good.
You good? Sherry?
Yes.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So this says approval of upgrade bus camera, so we want to approve it tonight, or we want to just approve it to put it in the budget?
Approved to be added to the budget,
Okay,
because they won't start the installation on January 1st, so it's going to be in a new budget. I mean, July 1st, new budget.
We had 6 monitors last time.
Right.
Get us through, maybe until we can get that done in July. We've already started looking and getting applications in for that, so we're on the move.
good.
Trying to get them people.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to approve the upgrade bus camera system for the bus fleet in the amount of 270, do we want to leave it
Not to exceed,
270?
maybe not to
Not to
exceed
exceed 270,000
Should we add in there for school year 2021?
for school year 2021.
That's correct, is that?
That's
Is
right.
that what you just said?
Mhm,
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Peridot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Motion carries 4-0. Motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Which one of you spoke first, Sherry? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Richardson.